I call to order the Board of Trustees special meeting for April 18, 2023, and the time is now 6 o'clock. Trustee Johnson, would you like to give the invocation?
Sure. Bow your heads with me. Dear Lord, thank you for this day and thank you for the people here. Pray for those citizens who cannot be here, that they would feel you, that they would be touched by what we do here also. Be with those who are public servants, who protect us, who are not only right here, but the ones that protect us from foreign entities and give us all the freedoms that we enjoy today. And their families, that they miss them when they're out serving, please be with them and comfort them. Amen.
Amen. Please join me with the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Ms. Varian.
Mr. Evans?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Ms. McKee?
Here. I move to set the limit of not more than one speech for 3 minutes length on the same question on the same day for each trustee. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Johnson?
None.
Mr. Evans?
Yes, again, I don't understand for the sake of our time and the residents' time, why if you want to limit speech and limit our discussion, just make it a permanent rule instead of having to address it at each and every meeting. It's not efficient, and if you're going to stifle discussion, just make it permanent. I, again, have no problem with 3-minute limit as long as meeting materials are provided prior, which again, they have not been. And one speech is just a speech, it's not discussion. And again, this board, members of the board that push for this rule routinely violate this rule. So if we're going to have a rule and not follow it, what's the sense of having the rule? So I'm against this rule.
Okay, Mr. Evans, I acknowledge you have an objection to this process. I will give you a continued objection. Can we move to a vote without further discussion?
I had my discussion.
Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I move to adopt the agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Johnson?
None.
Mr. Evans?
Yes, again, this agenda was created without the input of all trustees. It was the sole discretion of Ms. McKee, against even her own parliamentarians' advice to provide the draft agenda to all trustees and then seek their input on the matters they wished. I would have hoped that when the administrator was hired, that she would take over this responsibility as is customary in all other townships and entities, because she is charged with the day-to-day operations of this township. She should be compiling the agenda from the input of all trustees and also her actions. I requested that, and that was denied. And again, this meeting agenda was withheld from not only a fellow trustee, but our residents until the day before the meeting. This is an old tactic of Mr. Carlisle, and I think that's needs to stop. There's important things on here, or not on here, that need to be addressed, like the setting the date for the memorial dedication. Why aren't we setting that and discussing that? Building maintenance we need to discuss. We brought it up last year. The doors continue to rust out. Nothing's been done. So we need to discuss that. And the road crew hiring. One guy, one of the individuals that we offered the job to declined because of the pay and the benefits. He wasn't provided prior. And there was another applicant, and I think we should be discussing that, if we're going to move forward on that hire or open up the application to others. So, Ms. McKee, you got to release control of the agenda, give it to the administrator, which is the proper place for it, where she would work with all trustees. So I would move to add under new business a discussion for the memorial dedication and a section on discussing building maintenance, which isn't being done. Mr. Johnson's in charge of that, and also the road crew hiring.
So it died for a lack of second. Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I move to adopt the minutes from February 14, 2023 meetings as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Johnson?
None.
Mr. Evans?
Yes, again, these minutes do not properly reflect the actions of this board by not including the motions made per Robert's rules that they should be included. It's another attempt to try to hide from the public the actions proposed and things that are pushed forward that are needed in this township. If you watch the video versus the minutes, totally different. And these minutes are 2 months behind. There's no reason. The law requires timely production of the minutes, which is typically the next meeting. Why these cannot be produced at the next meeting, I'd like an answer either from the administrator or fiscal officer, but she said she didn't know why the minutes were not being produced on time. She didn't have control of that. So proper administration needs to start now, and that includes minutes, because we need to be transparent with the public.
Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
It's passed.
Okay. I move to open the public hearing for the application submitted by Sharon Lance for partial number 010-117-652-00000 located on Refugee Road west of Watkins Road to rezone from planned unit development to low-density residential district, which is a R1, with the planned residential conservation district, and the time is now 6:08. The legal notice for the Board of Trustee public hearing was in Pataskla Standards on April 6, 2023. The application was submitted to the Licking County Planning Commission for a non-binding recommendation on February 13, 2023. The Planning Commission met on February 27, 2023. The Licking County Planning Commission Board voted to provide a non-binding recommendation of conditional approval. The Zoning Commission recommendation to the Board of Trustees to approve the application and was received on March 20th, 2023. I would like to turn the meeting over to Mr. John Singleton.
We received the application from Sharon Lance, who currently lives in Pataskla and would like to build her home here in Etna. She would like to rezone, have this property rezoned that she bought in 2016, I believe? 2017, okay. Rezoned from planned unit development with the PRCD overlay to R1 with the PRCD overlay. And the main reason for that is she doesn't want to be in bound by the HOA rules of Watkins Grove. She currently lives in an area with an HOA and does, there's issues there with HOAs. And she wishes to be outside of that. The comprehensive plan does call for residential in this area, and the change would be in compliance with the comp plan. The applicant wants to keep the PRCD overlay just to keep future options open. Under the existing PUD, the original plan had 64 single-family dwellings, or 64 lots for this site, and that was dated November 15th of 1999. The most recent plan submitted had 68 lots, and that was dated June 22nd of 2016. Phase 3 has never gotten past the initial stages of planning because they've run into issues with AEP's got a couple easements that do run across this property and limit what they can and can't do. Her plan is to build her home there, and she wants to keep the wooded area wooded and keep things as is and put a walking path down through that even the people who Watkins Grove can use. If somewhere down the line it would be developed under the PRCD, which once she builds her home and takes part of that acreage away, you'd be looking at approximately 10 homes or less additional to hers. Whereas currently you could, like I say, the last plan had 68 lots in it. The Planning Commission did talk about other things, but what they didn't take into consideration are the existing easements that run across the property and the amount of land that is required for an R1. They were concerned that by going to R1 you could have potentially 19 or 20 homes coming out onto Refugee Road. That is not her intent. Her intent is to build her home on this property and maintain the property currently as it is, and then, see what the future holds at that point. Currently, that is her plan. The property to the east is zoned PUD, which is Watkins Grove. To the south, it's zoned R1 with PRCD overlay, which this abuts up to. The west is agricultural. The north is in Harrison Township. Part of it is zoned agricultural, part of it is B1, commercial. And the recommendation from the Planning Commission, as previously stated, they recommended approval with conditions, and the conditions were to look at the possibility of the other zoning districts. They talked about the possibility SER, which would be a spot zoning. The other was agricultural, which would just create larger lots if somewhere down the line it does split. But Mrs. Lance has requested it to be rezoned to R1. To change one of the others, she would need to consent to that, I believe. And the recommendation from the zoning commission was to approve the rezoning, and the recommendation from staff is to approve the rezoning from PUD with PRCD overlay to R1 with the PRCD overlay. It does reduce the number of possibility lots on this parcel. That's all I have.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Trustee comments, Mr. Johnson?
This originally was under to build houses the same as like phase 3 is what you're saying?
This is phase 3 of Watkins Road.
So they're just taking phase 3 out and making it more back to R1, right?
Yes.
That's exactly what they're doing, okay. That's what I thought, I just wanted to confirm that.
I don't mind answering any questions if you have.
Well, I would say this though about it, that people want bigger lots out here, they want nice homes on them, and all these little things, I think they're doing an excellent thing for the township with their design.
Trustee-
There's supposed to be public comments.
Trustee Evans, trustee comments right now. You have any comments, Mr. Evans?
Or are we going to have comments after
I'm
public
going to
comments?
ask you, do you
I'm
have?
asking the chair,
Mr.
is there comments after public comments?
We're going to do trustee comments right now, and then we'll
So
go
you're not
into
even
other
gonna-
comments. That's not true. That's not true. I need you.
Okay. I do have a question. The original plan, which was higher density, but it only had one outlet to Refugee Road, and that was a big concern of the Planning Commission with 3,000 daily trips on Refugee Road. It's just going to get busier with all the development going on and that. So those curb cuts and access, that was a concern. Is this property we talked about a couple years ago that you were
Yes.
looking at to develop? And
Yes, I believe I have talked to you.
Oh, okay.
I believe I talked to you on the
it was for the
phone.
widow, home for the widow?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah, that would be my only concern. And is there, what was your take on the zoning commission's recommendation of a different district of ag or CER based on your, I know they said it's not your intent, but it might not be intent, but if we rezone it, it's an option.
Would you like me to address what I would like to do?
Yes.
Mark, for the record, that was Licking County Planning Commission. The zoning commission didn't
Planning
discuss.
Commission.
They didn't discuss with her about that change, did they?
The planning commission, yeah.
Would you like-
If you had thoughts on that, because that was one of my concerns, and if that's an option for what you're planning.
I care very much about safety.
She would need to come in.
Yeah,
Would you like me to come?
Please, thank you.
Please, we can get you on the record that way.
Okay, I'm not
We
very
can't hear you
good.
that well.
I'm not skilled in public address, but I'll
That's
do my
fine.
best.
Yes.
What I
it's
have
on.
in mind is building a home for myself and a few other people in my same situation. I was widowed early in life, and I found that sometimes just having others to share things with will make it easier. I'm not building a licensed facility or anything of that nature. I just want to make this commodious enough that I could share this with several other widows, and not assisted living, but kind of self-assisted living. I plan on keeping at least 20 acres for myself because I want to build an apple orchard at the back of the property and along the wooded areas where there's already a little bit of drainage issues, so to speak. You don't need to be building homes back there. I've looked over the floodplains, and although they say I'm not in a floodplain, I've went there when it rains. It stays a little too wet. We don't want to be building over there. I plan on building my home to the back of the property on the highest area. And what I would like to have, I'll build this first, get it up running, get the things built, the orchards built, etc., the house filled. If later it seems to be working out and there seems to be need, I may want to come in and build a few homes outside of my home for other 50 and above. Hopefully this also will help keep from bringing more burden to the tax district. Our school districts are overburdened. They've just built brand new schools and they're full to the gills. I ran for school board last time, and I'm greatly concerned that the state stepped in and told us, no, you can't build as big as you want. And now they're stuck with being told no and the consequences. We have to be careful what we do. As far as the refugee roads entry and exit points, what I would like is one main entryway down on the western side before you get to the AEP line. I think they're AEP lines, the big lines. And I got to talk to AEP to get their approval, but I'd like to build kind of a visual screen there and have a nice big wide road, and then one other road further up before you get to the eastern boundaries, and have them come in should we build more lots. It would be, this is not meant to be some big cookie cutter beige house after beige house after beige house. If we build others later, there'll be individual homes according to whatever the people want, and they'll be on larger lots, or they'll be, I have had the thought that for people 50 and above, we don't really want to fool with lots. We don't really want to fool with yard. It might be better that we had some duplexes or triplexes where they have shared walls and very little yard to take care of. But I'd like to keep areas on this, I've got 50 acres there nearly. I'd like to keep areas where people could have their gardens. They may not want to have it in their yard to have to fool with, but they might want to have a place to go plant some tomatoes or whatever. I just want to, my idea here is to build community. So that's my intent, and that's what I have in mind. I don't have unlimited money, so when I build my house, we'll have to get to where we can, you know, meet all expenses there, and little by little, hopefully this will happen over time. But
Well, it sounds like the PRC district is exactly what you described, of the smaller lots, some shared walls, but then open space and that.
lots of open.
So do you have, with their recommendation, maybe looking into the agricultural district with that PRC
Yeah.
overlay, would you have an objection to that?
No. Matter of fact, the gentleman who's farming for me right now, he and I've talked a good deal. Until everything comes in, I mean, I'm not made of money. But once the house is built and everything's going along smoothly, he's going to continue to farm the front of that until, you know, we're to such a point. It'd probably be several years. I can't imagine the front of that property changing for several years. It'll take, I'm hoping we could break ground on the house in 1.5 years. But that, I think that's being very optimistic.
Well, that was my question then. My question to Mr. Singleton is, would that go into the ag with the PRCD alleviate any possible future concern about the curb cuts for refugee? And I know right now she's saying the one access road, and that's great. That's what the original was, and that's what the commission was saying. Would that be better if she's agreeable to it, to not do the R1, to do the ag?
It
with the
would.
PRCD?
It would, because the PRCD overlay is still there.
Right.
And that allows for what she is wanting to do. And with the number of homes in the PRCD, by the time you do the calculations of the net developable space, you would be below the trigger point that triggers that second access.
Right.
Oh, could I have 2 accesses though? I think that might be like an entrance and an ingress
I
and
think you would.
egress.
Yeah, you would still have.
You could, but it wouldn't be a requirement.
It wouldn't be a requirement, but it'd be permitted.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure, because like it depends on how it all lays out, and I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't want to like limit myself to one thing. But I don't want 8 cuts into refugee. That's just a car accident waiting to happen. So.
Right, and that was my concern as well as the
Yeah.
commission's that. But no, I commend you for doing this, and I mean, it's a great goal to provide that housing for the widow.
Well, it's self-serving too. I mean,
for company, and
I
But it's
just,
needed.
I help them, but they help me. It's kind of. Have you ever noticed you can't? I'm a Christian. I've never done a single thing that I didn't get back double, so to speak. God's good to His own.
Amen.
So would it be an issue, Mr. Singleton?
Madam
How would that
President,
happen?
we didn't advertise for ag. I don't know if you can change it that way tonight. We didn't advertise for ag, we advertised for R1.
Okay. Which
Well,
is what
That
we
would
have
be a
to-
prosecutor's question. I didn't advertise to go to ag. I think you would have to restart it to change it to ag.
Can we call them, make sure?
Well, you can always live with it. It's my understanding that you can always live with it
John?
at a lower rating, just not a higher, so to speak. So if you approved R1, I can still continue on like I am right now with the farmer farming the front of it.
Yeah, the farmers, my concern is if it's just R1 and you don't know what the future holds in that. And say if you decided you want to move, or if you want to do that, it's zoned that, so whoever bought the property, they could do that, then you'd have those 19 curb cuts at refugee that are allowed. So I'm just saying with the ag, it would
Yeah.
reduce that, and if it's okay with you, I would think that would be the better way to kind of proceed with that.
I would suggest then at the end of the hearing to table this to the next meeting and I can get an answer from the prosecutor's office.
Is there a time, are you looking to kind of start
I
quickly?
was kind of hoping, but now, I don't know if this is allowable, but I would be amenable, if you want to make this conditional to me to, say, 3 road cuts or something, just throw in an extra out of caution from my
Would that
perspective.
be- I don't think we could.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, that's outside the realm of,
okay.
Could we either check with the prosecutor now or maybe just do it in a special meeting?
I mean, they're gone now, it's almost 6:30, but
And if it has to be restarted, you're probably looking at another 90 days, like we told you when we started this, the first.
I don't think we
Could
need
I don't
we
to
think you
just-
need a
restart.
90 I don't think you need.
Could we just approve it an R1 and y'all trust
You know, I
me?
mean, if you switch it to ag, I feel pretty comfortable, he's gonna tell us we have to re-advertise that, because I didn't advertise it for ag. And the advertisement was specific to R1. I didn't say R1 or ag. And it's really clear when you advertise how that process goes. I'll be surprised if he tells you you can switch it to ag without starting it over.
Would it be possible we just continue on as it came to the board, if that's possible? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be contrarian, but I just think of,
I would suggest table and I'll get an opinion from the.
I like the R1 thing better, actually.
What's that?
I like the R1. I'm not really in favor of the ag at this point. I like the R1 that you proposed. I like that.
if
the
it's
way it
okay,
is.
I would appreciate it, and that way I could continue on and not be hindered.
So you're okay with the 19 curb cuts?
There won't be 19 curb cuts there, Mark, because you can't have that lots that way on there. Otherwise, they're flag lots and they're over the 3-1 number, and so it won't happen that
If
way.
you go down there and look, there's no way
So,
it would be pretty
Plus-
tough.
plus, if you leave it ag, you never know what you can end up with. There's a lot of things in ag that you can't have in R1. So I like it that way because
You really
you
don't
know
want
what
to
you're
big
going to
farm.
develop there. It's residential, it's not whatever. That's why you don't like the R1. And if you like it, I'm happy for it.
But what would prevent them from making the lots all the way down front? Just each 100-foot lot, there's nothing preventing.
Flag lots, 3-to-1 ratio. You got 3-to-1 ratio. Can't have flag lots.
The full report, I did see a map where they did show the potential lots, and they did show the lots.
Yeah, that'd be-
I'd be more comfortable with the ag, and she said as long as it didn't, I mean, I would hope that was researched prior as our options and that. It doesn't look like it's done. I mean, if it wouldn't hold things up that long, I would say table. and give
I would
an
not,
opinion and-
I would not support ag, I'll tell you that right now. Support R1. I think your idea is great, though.
I can only give you my word.
I know.
My intent is to have community, and the ingress and egress I care very much about, because often that's where car accidents occur.
Yeah.
Right.
And I had the thought, even with, of like a boulevard, a ingress and egress, 2 big lanes coming down, I would want to have turn-in lanes and turn-out lanes to help, ease any
Mhm.
difficulties at that point, because it is close, not too far from a stop sign. I care very much about anybody that I'm going to have a hand in the future. I want them to have one.
And like I said, I'm not doubting her intent, but I don't think we could do.
There is an option to that also, and that is that she can place deed restrictions on anything that would be split to prevent that.
We could require that?
She could,
She can do it, we can't require it.
yeah, she could do that.
But there again, not saying, it, but that's the intent of, that's, our zoning, if we did that with everything, say, pinky promise, and, that's where I'm going at. Of any future, because once it's zoned, it's zoned,
That is
for
correct.
any future owner.
How
That
can
is
it be
correct.
divided right now? I mean, I'm not sure what, right now they could probably sell.
Right now, under the PUD, it has to develop under those PUD guidelines.
But that was 68 lots.
Those 68 lots, and there were 2 access points.
Oh, 2, okay. Well, they had the same idea.
There was one public access and there was one emergency access.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's similar to what I had in mind, except just not so full. I don't like cookie cutter neighborhoods with just house after house. That's me. I plan on living there the rest of my life, so I want it to be amenable to my taste.
I just think we should do a due diligence, but do it in an expedited fashion before we make a decision.
Process-wise, you have just saying R1, you have them saying ag, so I don't know if they do a motion for the board to whether to proceed with R1 or ag.
Just finish out the hearing and then make a motion at the end of it.
Well, don't we have to have a public?
Finish out the public
As we
hearing.
said, to finish out. the
Public
hearing.
can
Yeah,
comment.
well, our next is public comments.
Yep, let's go through those next.
Shall I
Public
sit
comments.
down?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Lance.
You're welcome.
Is there any public comments?
I would say, I could agree with the R1.
Name and
And-
address for the record, please.
Oh, Teresa Odershoff, 484 Trail West. Just as a side note, I would agree with the R1. Because with the zoning, you can limit where, you know, you cannot approve or say, I'm not going to approve that with the cover access to refugee. I'm going to approve it with the access to the inner road. So you have all houses going back, and that comes with your, you know, with your zoning approval or lot approval or building approvals. And then my main thing I wanted to comment on is to welcome Leah Hansen.
No, this is
Oh,
regarding.
just this, okay. Okay, I'll go back to that.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other public comments regarding the property?
Hello,
Aye.
Rachel Zelazny, 10141 Tollgate Road. And I would actually go with residential as well, because with agriculture, like Johnson said, is later on, they can just be like, hey, we're gonna rezone it, and you have manufacturing next to your house, and then your whole yard floods going through it. I would suggest that.
Thank you. Other public comments regarding the hearing? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll just move on over to see what the pleasure of the board is.
Well, I'd like a little bit of discussion after those. I would just say.
Again, we are moving on to the board, so yes, we will discuss it, and that's what we're doing right now.
Okay. Well, I just like, regarding Teresa's comments, the R1, I believe that's required, each could have their own driveways. I don't think we can, Mr. Singleton, could we have a requirement that?
It
there's
goes on,
shared
the
driveways?
driveway goes on the egress road, not the refugee.
I don't know if we could force an egress road or a separate road for R1.
It'd be illegal, that'd be a legal question. I would have to go through the prosecutor.
That's right. And then regarding the R1 over ag for warehouses, you could rezone anything. If it's not built, you could apply to rezone anything. So whether ag or R1, it was where the school was built was R1. It can happen. So I don't think that should be a contributing factor, but I really think that we should do our due diligence, get that legal opinion in an expedited fashion and not hold up Ms. Lance's application. So I would move to table it to get that legal opinion.
Is there a second to table? So it sounds like we don't want to table it as a board. So
So process-wise, like you and I discussed before, just to remind you, you can either, if you close the public hearing, you have to act within your 20 days. If you recess it, then you have more time for any other reason. If you're ready to act on it tonight, you can either close it and wait 20 days to make your decision.
And I do have a question in the resolution. You can approve, deny, or approve with modifications, like the prior board did. They changed quite a bit about the
But your
zoning.
modifications, I don't think can be from one zoning district to another without re-advertising it. Your modifications could be other things, but you're going from a whole different district versus what was advertised. Can't think of a modification right now off the top of my head.
There's no way to get the prosecutors, because other meetings, Mr. Carlisle had contacted the prosecutor.
That
Could we
was-
approve it with a request for an ingress and egress road? I mean, I don't know the whole of that.
I don't think we would do that for R1.
I move to close the public hearing.
You move to close the public hearing, Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll say.
Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
What, hallelujah?
But they're not done now. That's just-
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
public comments
Yeah.
are closed.
I move resolution number 23-04-18-01, correct, Laura?
Yes.
Resolution to approve the request to amend the zoning map submitted by Sharon Lance for parcel number 010-01/01765-2-00.000, located on Refugee Road west of Watkins Road from planned unit development to low-density residential district R1 with the planned residential conservation district remaining.
I'll second.
And then on, just for the record, on section 1, I'm gonna make that approved also.
All right,
Approved.
yeah, section 1,
Thank you.
with the approval there.
So we go-
You have discussion and then
Is there a, okay, I'll one on the second. Is there a discussion, Mr. Evans?
Yes, I'm just gonna let you know, I'm gonna vote no on this, but it's not because of your project, but just because I believe it should be ag with the PRCD. It will give you what you want. It'll protect Refugee Road, the egresses, because I think this is just pushing it to the future of a possible issue if things change. So I'm for what you're doing, but I don't think this is the proper way to do it. I just want to get that on the record.
Roll call. Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
That's pretty.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we know you made the motion to approve the resolution provided, okay?
Jeff made the motion and you seconded.
Yep. Okay, so we'll move on over to Ms. Hanson's report, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Is it all right if I speak from here?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. This will be the first of what will be periodic oral reports to the board and to the residents. It's my intention that with these reports, although not completely comprehensive of everything, but that it'll provide an update on issues and projects that may be of interest to the residents of Etna Township. Sometimes when I make these reports, it may include a request that the trustees take some action, but my job is not to dictate to the trustees what action they would take or what business they would do. My job is to implement whatever it is they decide to do. So the board is under no obligation, I just don't want there to be any misconception that the board is under no obligation to take any action with respect to any discussion that I may make when I make these reports. This is the first meeting that is now being live streamed on the official Etna Township YouTube channel. We have, well, a small sign that says that we're recording to let people know, but we have a bigger sign that has been ordered and just hasn't been received yet. So there's a link on the township website so that residents can watch the live stream or they can view the recordings later on. As far as the Licking County Transportation Improvement District, there are two primary projects that involve Etna Township. One is the Refugee Road widening, and the Licking County TID has begun the right-of-way acquisitions. Offers have been made to all but one landowner who was out of the country,
And the next step is for a construction inspection, which will be done by CTL Engineering. Completion of the project is scheduled for July or August of 2024. The lighting that is placed, they made a comment that will likely be temporary as there are backlogs and delays getting permanent light poles, which I think is sort of a consequence from COVID, of all things. President McKee had negotiated already language for inclusion in the Refugee Road Maintenance Agreement between Etna and Pataskala to ensure that Refugee Road maintenance costs from Etna Parkway to 310 are borne equally between the township and Pataskala. The township is currently responsible for all maintenance costs east of Etna Parkway. Then there's also the Pike Street Grant Project. ODOT is involved with this project, and a meeting that was previously delayed due to applications pending for federal funds will be reconvened in the next several weeks. The Schuster Way dedication, there will be meetings in May for the final hearing on that dedication. Presuming that everything goes as is planned, then the final hearing is in mid-May for the Schuster Way dedication. There was questions, I know, at one of the meetings about the Safe School Travel Sidewalk Program. Etna Township was not selected as a community to receive ODOT funding for safe travel projects. There may be opportunity in the future for different funds for the same project, but as of right now, we don't have any ODOT funding. The township is aware that Sheets has been given a second violation of the Licking County Soil Erosion and Stormwater Regulations. This is related primarily to installation and maintenance of silt fences and control of sediment. Remediation is required no later than April the 19th. Non-compliance with this deadline may force a stop work order, so we'll be keeping a close watch on what's happening on this issue. The township is investigating the purchase of 2 temporary speed monitoring signs for placement initially on Pike Street and Columbia Road, and we'll be providing more information on this issue as it is available. The Fred Garland Bragg Jr. Memorial has been placed in High Point Park near the gazebo. For anyone who's not familiar, First Lieutenant Bragg distinguished himself by exceptionally valorous action in 1967 while serving as artillery forward observer with an artillery company on a search and destroy mission near the Cambodian border in the Central Highlands. He gave his life while bravely leading his men in the face of overwhelming odds. First Lieutenant Bragg's extraordinary heroism and devotion to duty at the cost of his life were in keeping with the highest traditions of the military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. Sorry if I get a little emotional. My son served in the Army and it chokes me up. We will be providing information about the dedication ceremony for the memorial as it is received from the family. And also more information about First Lieutenant Bragg is in a newsletter that's been prepared by President McKee that residents will be receiving in the mail. There is a pond that is remote to the bulk of the park land that is adjacent to Smoke Road, which has caused drainage issues for the neighboring property immediately north of the pond. And this has been an issue that has been ongoing for a number of years, even before the township took control of the property. We've considered several options for remediation that included issuing a request for proposal for an outside company to remediate the issue, or having township personnel drain the pond, dredge it out, and permit it to refill. Either of these options would require fairly extensive remediation to the drain system that is currently in place, as well as future monitoring and perhaps future remediation. Licking County Soil and Water said that verbally told me there's no problem with a plan that would empty the pond, dry it, and fill it with fill dirt and plant grass. We had a suggestion from an outside company that the efforts to do that would cost upwards of $50,000, which included that company providing the necessary 3,000 yards of fill dirt. But township employees can drain the pond, allow the area to dry, then fill the pond with the dirt that is already available at the garage and plant the grass. The only cost to the township would be in manpower and fuel, and it will take about maybe 4 weeks to complete the project, depending on the weather. This pond is more remote to the rest of the park. It serves no aesthetic or recreational purpose. It currently causes an issue for the adjacent property owner, and there is a potential for liability. Especially with the schools directly across the street, it would seem to make sense from a safety standpoint to fill the pond and add to the green space that will be part of the park. And I recommend that the trustees move to permit township employees to drain the pond, allow the area to dry, then fill the pond with dirt that is already available at the garage and plant grass. This would be pending written approval by the Licking County Soil and Water. I've asked for, I got the verbal approval, but I asked them to let me know in writing. In addition, I recommend that the trustees move to allow the expenditure of up to $3,000 for the rental of a bulldozer or similar equipment should any be required. Mr. Copley thought that probably it could be done with the equipment that we currently have, but at most he might need to rent a bulldozer. So that's a recommendation that I make. If any of the trustees have questions or would like to move to permit that plan to go into place pending the written approval of the Licking County Soil and Water.
I so move to allow for our employees, Mr. Copley being the superintendent of the project, to no more than $4,000 towards the project to rent any kind of equipment you may need to take care of the pond so we can drain it and make it safe for our community. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Comments?
Is there any way we can make a swale or a slope out of the pond, where you have a swale to drain the pond and then it would run naturally down to the creek area at all?
To the creek backwards or to the swell in front?
To the creek out back? Is it? It'd have to be pretty deep. Because my thought was is that if it's going to hold water in that area anyways, which I think it's kind of soupy through there, right? That if we did away with the pond, you're still got a soupy, swampy area. If you had a natural drain or natural slope to it that went down towards the creek, when you planted grass, you'd have a nice sturdy place instead. And you could use some of that dirt to fill the pond in, cut your trench, drain it, push the dirt off to the side, bring it back up to the.
Well, I will have to reshape it between pine trees so that the ground
Right.
will drain to the.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Would that be something you consider too? Maybe we don't have to use haul as
Yeah.
much dirt that way,
And
but you
drain
need a
it.
dozer to do that, correct?
Yeah.
Do you have operational skills on a dozer? Okay. So that's something you guys can still do in-house?
Right.
And you think you can do that with the 4,000 you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
There would be an investment of some of the fuel, you
Right.
know,
Oh, I
of course.
understand that, yeah.
You know,
Yes.
our manpower and our fuel, so there would be that investment. But in terms of outside investment, it would just be the equipment rental.
Yeah, I don't see that pond serves much of a purpose at this point.
Right.
And I don't think it's something we've invested a bunch of money into to make it a viable pond being right next to the road.
Yeah.
All right, I have comments. To say that this is a remote park, this would be an entrance to a park.
Correct.
So that is not remote. that was forward. It's the
It's
first.
in the pardon me, I'm
it's-
sorry.
It's the entrance to the park. It's a natural feature. I actually had a contractor out today that said this is a beautiful pond. He believes it's spring fed, so that could be an issue with that. The neighbors have had issues with basement issues, water issues. So, and even he said that if you fill it in and it's spring fed, that water pressure is going somewhere and it's going out to the side, and that could cause issues to those homeowners. But again, it's a beautiful natural feature. We're treating the township like a flip house, like just fill it in, just do whatever. There were no proposals even received, which I'm shocked at. I figured something like this was going to happen. I saw on the activity report about filling it in, so I wanted to get a professional opinion. And for about $20-some thousand, they can reclaim it, even capturing the turtles in there, bring it back, doing all the stuff to have the jewel of, I believe one of the CAC members talks about Etna being the jewel of the East. This could be the jewel entry to our park. And to just do it on a quick motion without public input of, do we want this in our park? And that, I think, is a huge mistake. The expenses, again, $50,000 to fill it in. Our guys can do it for $3,000 or $4,000, but it's their time. They need to address other things. They've got crack sealing. They've got a lot. But we need to invest in our community, and this is one part of it. And what kind of park do we want? We haven't even talked to park planners. Should we have it? Should we not? So I think this is premature. At least we need to treat it to cut down on the smell and the muskrats and that, if you don't want to fully reclaim it. But to act without a professional proposal or several, I think is just improper, not doing our due diligence and seeking the input of the community, where this isn't even on the agenda. And this is big. And that's where I disagree with your reports of you may recommend actions. Those should be in the agenda, so everybody's aware of what's going to happen. Because I'm sure a lot of the community, especially the landowner adjacent, they want that to remain. And most other people do, and his concern is if you fill it in with that natural spring, it's going to cause additional issues with his basement, and that could lead to lawsuits. So I would move that we table this until we get further. I know some of us want to shove it through, but don't you care what the public thinks, what the public wants? This is even before public comments. So you're saying, we don't want to hear from you, we're going to do this, and you're going to live with it. After we paid that much for the park, the park planners aren't even
Procedure-wise, you have a
process.
move to table on the floor.
So I moved to table.
Ms. Sampson, please.
Yeah, I just want to respond to some of Mr. Evans' comments. So the concern that I had was, first of all, this is right at the entrance of the park. So it would be even a perfect place to put a nice sign for the park. With the schools being right across the street, there's a potential for liability for children that could fall into the pond, especially right now it's not very deep, but if it's dredged, then it'll be very deep. And so I have concerns about the safety issue that would be left if the pond.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
Oh, I'm so
Ms.
sorry.
Sampson. You're
He had
fine.
a motion
We
to
got
table on the floor.
a motion
We
to
need see if
table
you
it.
get a second.
So
Okay.
can we get a
Excuse
second
me.
to table it?
If it dies, do it like to a second,
So-
then you would need a.
Can we get a second?
Is there a second to
So-
table?
I'll second that. The motion to table, what does that get us though?
If you're tabling it, then he's
Due
postponing it
diligence
to
and
another
research, bring
meeting.
people in, get community input.
I don't,
This is their park, this is not our park.
And if you're seconding it,
Okay.
then before you move forward,
Talk
you're
to the
gonna have a
prosecutor about
vote.
liability, talk
You have to
to,
have a vote before you.
for what?
You seconded it, so he made a motion to table it, so after discussion, you have to vote to table it because you seconded it.
We have discussion, last second, we have discussion about tabling it, right?
Correct, but then you
So-
have to have a vote to
So
table.
my question goes to, so what do we gain from tabling it other than,
Mr. Evans, you wanted us to do something about this pond. You harped about it last meeting, you harped about the meeting before. We got to fill in this pond, it's a mess, it's harming the guy's driveway, it's all this other stuff. But now you want to keep the pond there? That doesn't make sense to me.
No.
It's my turn. You wanted to have this, it's a thing right next to the road, right next to Smoke Road. We have several other ponds in the neighborhood over there.
no.
We
We
need to have a
two-
way to, I'm talking please, all right? I don't interrupt you. We have an obligation to the safety of the children there, that they dock in that pond. It's almost a nuisance that's so close to the road. Of course, it makes a nice place to do, but what are we gonna do as a park there? People will come fish, they're gonna park along the edge of the road, they're gonna sit there. Is that we wanna see a bunch of people fishing around that pond right in front of our nice park? I'd rather have them going to the back of the park to fish. So it's not like it's serving any purpose at this point. If we didn't have any ponds, I'd say, yeah, it's a great thing to keep on. We have several ponds in the backyard. So that's my point. If we cut a swale, like we talked about, that alleviates the problem. If there's spring coming up, if it goes back that way, we can have drainage back towards the creek, fill it in, angle it so anything that comes in will go back through that to the creek. We won't have soft spots in the yard anymore like we have. The guy won't have problems in his basement anymore. It'll alleviate all those if it's done correctly. That's what I was asking, can we do that? When I was asking if there's room to do that, it'll solve other problems we have in that area. So, and it doesn't limit us to where we can, if we need to build an entrance to the park right there, we can build it wherever we need to at that point.
Well, I asked for discussion for this, for the board. That's what I asked for, so that we can deal with it, not fill it in, not any of this stuff. And typically, you do due diligence, and you get professionals to get, there were no estimates, no other people give it, and I did today, and they said, what, you wouldn't want to fill it in, and they actually said you would have issues with the spring, with the, now, when you're putting water out and that, but again, why don't we get all the information, since we don't have it, and get community input? You say, why would you want a pond in the front? We're not park designers in that, but that's a natural feature that's self-filling, that is, like I said, he said it's a beautiful pond, it's the water's great, it's this, and it's got vibrant life, turtles, and so, no, but this is the reason to get that information instead of treating it like a flip house of just fill it in, put some grass and go. So,
Mr. Evans.
I still
Go ahead,
have
you got
time.
3 minutes.
But
That's it.
this is, why don't you want the information? We've had this park plan since last year, and nothing's been done with it, and all of a sudden it's a safety issue. All of a sudden, there's retainage ponds around, we have other ponds in there. Are you gonna fill all the ponds?
No,
Kids
you're
are gonna
going too
play around the
far.
park.
You're going too far.
So whether
That's
it's
in
up
the
front-
park, in the park. It's not at the base of
But the
the
kids can
Spoke
get in
Road.
the pond in the park or
That's-
next to the park or
Mr. Evans,
anywhere in the park.
okay.
I'm speaking, please.
No, and I'm speaking
So-
now, okay? You had your 3
We get
minutes.
one time. I
You
know,
had your
it
3
had
minutes.
3 minutes, I still have a
You
couple
have
minutes
your,
left.
no, I just timed it. Your 3 minutes are up. Mr. Evans, I have a question for you. Who did you have come in to access the pond that you just mentioned? You said you had somebody come in and said it's a
Yes,
spring,
Blueview Ponds.
Blueview Pond?
Do you want
Okay.
the estimate? Because I just got it. I met him today again. I saw the activity report. Nobody
And what
even
was-
told me
what
about
was-
this.
what was the
So I
estimate?
figured what was
Okay,
going to be
excuse
done.
me, what was the estimate?
22,000
Okay.
for digging out, reclaiming the pond. I could forward it, but you know what? If we table it, you can review it. We could look at get other people to come out there. This is a great natural resource, and to just fill it without even having a park
Again,
consultant.
I'm going to say this. It is a liability. It's so close to the school, and we want the
Have you
school.
talked to the prosecutor about
Excuse
that?
me, we want to have the school to have access to the park. We want that, but we don't want anybody to get harmed in the meantime. So we want to deal with that pond that's there,
So
that's
you got an
causing other
opinion from
issues.
the prosecutor.
So,
Did you get an opinion from the prosecutor, Ms. Hanson?
I did not.
okay,
Don't
I
you
think
think that would
Mr.
be
Evans,
advisable?
I think Mr. Evans, it's obvious the number of reports that you see of children that fall into retention ponds. My point is that this pond is at the very opening of the park.
Yeah.
There's a school, an elementary school and another school right across the street from this. If it is initially remediated, it's going to require adjustments to the drain system in order to accommodate so this doesn't happen again, or it's going to end up being remediated over and over. If we take care of it with a permanent solution that will not impact any of the aesthetics of the park, it won't impact any of the recreational ability of the park, but it will take care permanently of a problem that gives the landowner problem and is a potential for problem to the township in the future. Now, it's difficult and disappointing that you tasked me with a job of taking care of the pond and making a recommendation. That's exactly what I'm doing here today. But that wasn't, you saw something and that piqued your interest, and so you went off today and did something else. And it's
That you did not
difficult.
do.
I'm sorry?
That you refused to do.
No, that's not true.
You did not get an estimate. You did not talk to a professional pool. or
That's just not true, Mr. Evans.
You did.
I have an estimate for the plan that I recommend we put into place. And an estimate by an outside company, a contractor, to do what I recommend that we do was nearly $50,000. Now, if you can, the board obviously can vote not to implement the plan that I propose, in which case I'll have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what else do we need to do or what might be an alternative plan. But for the plan that I propose, I have all of the information that I need and I've given it to the board.
You made your decision to fill it without speaking to any professional pond companies. That's
No
just
decision
improper.
has been made.
Let's vote.
I make a recommendation only.
We're gonna
Vote
vote,
on the motion.
I think you first have to vote on the motion.
we're gonna vote on the motion for table. Ms. Varian, please.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
No.
Ms. McKee?
No. So,
Vote on the original motion.
I'm gonna go back and vote on the original motion to move, where I moved it. So we're gonna go ahead and vote on that, Ms. Varian.
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Thank you.
Continuing with my report, you've heard some discussion about framework. Framework is a collaborative planning initiative to manage change and position the communities of Western Lincoln County, including Etna Township. The objective is to establish a development plan and strategic approach to managing growth to ensure our communities remain healthy and are successfully positioned for the future. The most recent meeting for Framework was a community workshop. It was interesting to share perspectives with the people at my table about areas that are doing well and things that needed to be addressed. It was great to hear that Etna is perceived as doing well in terms of development. One big takeaway from this meeting is the need for residential housing for the expected 3,000 workers at Intel. The stated goal was providing housing within Licking County to avoid losing residents to other communities, and this was according to the Framework leadership. And we want to make sure that having mixed uses that are appropriately scaled, conservation, and design quality are the important things that we're taking a look at. There's been discussion about the FedEx lighting and sound barrier, the Skinnell Properties location. The county has ordered Skinnell to remediate the stormwater issues by June 30th of 2023. This remediation may result in the necessity to modify the barrier wall. As far as the lighting and sound barrier, the barrier wall was constructed pursuant to code and pursuant to the building plans. The plans were drawn by engineers who designed the current barrier. We will be meeting with Skinnell Properties next week and with a discussion of so we can learn better what their proposal is for modification of the barrier wall. The discussion of the rhino storage on Pike Street. The zoning officer has successfully worked with rhino storage to reduce the glare from commercial lighting that was previously approved by the Licking County Planning Commission. The permit has been issued for the final building, and rhino storage is required to install a tree buffer with the construction of the final building. Completion is expected by the end of the summer or early fall. Watch for more information on upcoming community events. We'd like to maybe consider having a family movie night in the park. There'll be information in coordination with First Lieutenant Bragg's family about the dedication of the memorial. And if you have suggestions for community events, please reach out to me. Always feel free to stop by Town Hall. I'm here just about all day, every day, unless I'm out for meetings. You can reach me on my cell, which I'm happy to give, 740-814-9365. My email address is nhanson, Hanson, @etnatownship.com. I have business cards too, if anyone would like one. Thank you for giving me this time.
And I have a question, Ms. Hanson.
Sure.
On the Bragg dedication, he had requested Memorial Day, the 29th, at
Great.
what time? At 11 a.m. He requested that back March 27th. Is there a reason that we're not setting a date and time so people can plan and that?
No, if you had, this is information that was new to me, so we can work with the family. The last I know, the family was supposed to let us know when they were gonna be available.
Well, there's an email here from Jeff Bragg, and that's the date he's requested.
Okay, great.
So,
Did you,
Ms.
if you'll
McKee
forward
is-
that email to me, I'll be happy to reach out to him
Well,
and get
Ms.
it
McKee has this,
scheduled.
but can we approve this date since that's the date he's requested?
Well,
This
do you
was sent
think
to all
we should double
trustees.
check with the family to make sure that that is still the date they would like?
That'd be fine.
Okay.
Can
If
we-
someone will forward me the information, I'll be happy to do the follow-up.
Yeah, these are just things that we need to address, so it's not sitting out there. and
What was the
people
date
plan.
on that email? May 29th, you said?
Yeah, he requested back on March 27th that it be May 29th at 11 a.m. And I tried to get information on this and it's been blocked, but I did have another question on the signs, the speed signs.
Yes.
From what I've spoke to other municipalities, those aren't really that effective. Ticketing is. I've been trying to move this board to kind of enforce that, to start writing tickets since we have now an officer on each shift. We can direct them to what we could do. Can we direct them to issue more citations and get the enforcement up so people slow down?
Well, so I assume that the deputy sheriffs that will be patrolling will enforce the law. The meeting that we're going to have is to get more information about these signs that at least some communities have used with good results to remind people about their speed and what the posted speed is. I think where they are less effective is where they stay for long periods of time where people get used to seeing them. But it's just in the talk stage, so no, of course, there hasn't been any proposal made in terms of purchase. We're just going to get some more information.
I'm just talking about enforcement. I think the deputies are paid by us and we can direct them. And they've said that if we want them to ticket more, they'll ticket. So I'm saying, as a board, why don't we move forward with that and show some enforcement? Ms. McKee, Mr. Johnson, are you against that?
Madam President, may I speak? Yeah, I'll be happy to talk to the deputies and let them know that we would encourage them to enforce the law.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we'll move over to public comments.
Teresa Gershon, 484 Trail West. One little side point on the pond, if it is fed by a spring, when they go to try to dig it out or empty out the water, it won't empty out. It'll continue to be fed, and then you might have to then adjust what you're going to do.
Thank you.
But I do want to, as it says, welcome you to the township and remind you that you are a township employee. It means you are a public servant of the people of the township. We want all the trustees to work together, and because you have the Juris Doctorate, you should be a great communicator in helping them assist to learn to communicate all three together. I would also like, if you meet with one trustee on an issue that involves the township, that you email the other two trustees with an FYI, met with Rosalind today, discussed this for the parks, met with Jeff, discussed, the purchase of new equipment, so that all three trustees, which are equal members of the board, are informed of everything that's happening in this township. And nothing is hidden from any of the 3 board members. If it involves financial, then I would also include our financial officer. Examples like where communication could be improved is when the homeowner contacted Mark emailed the other trustees, but even though Ms. McKee is the head of the parks, she did not go any further in exploring it. She could have sent out someone to look at it. Is Mark's concern? She could have called the homeowner. She could have called the soil and district worker. Is there a problem? Rather than ignoring it. Another example was when we were with the renewal of the insurance. You did not explain the motion before you made it. You could have said, this is the plans that we are looking at. If we keep the Blue Cross Blue Shield at the present benefits, it's going to cost X. We have a proposed plan that reduces the out of deductible to this, increases the out of pocket to this, and costs this. And then make the motion. I motion that we renew with Blue Cross with the proposed plan at this. If she would have explained that beforehand, then it would have caused a lot less confusion with the other 2 trustees and understanding, and could have cut down on some bickering there.
Okay, Mrs. Teresa, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, well then I can't go with Jeff and because
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary Burkholder, 254 Trail East. I have several items here. The first is framework. I want to correct one thing. Etna Township was not included in the planning area. That was confirmed at the framework work session that they had in Newark, and any of the housing data did not include Etna Township, and they presented that, and I confirmed that with the framework over there at the T.J. Evans Foundation. The second, public records. I have a question too. It should not take a month and a half to get public records when it comes to the trustee minutes. I've made a public request for the draft minutes, which by the way are also public record. I've only received the February 14th, 2023 draft minutes, and so I would like to receive the rest of the draft minutes. Even though they haven't been approved, they do say draft. I'd like those up to the last meeting, and when this meeting draft minutes are ready, I'd like a copy of those as well. It's definitely an attempt to keep the public from knowing what's happening at our meetings in a timely fashion. The Tax Incentive Review Council, the reason that they're having a second meeting is not because a member was absent, it's because not many, but a few of the businesses that have to report their employment data did not have that data submitted in time to Licking County, and therefore they are going to have a subsequent meeting, and that date has not been sent. Scannell is one of those. They have not gotten their data yet, and I confirmed this with Licking County. They have not yet gotten their data from FedEx, so that is a problem also. The other item has to do with exclusionary zones. I attended the Zoning Commission for Etna Township. I should say the planning, the Zoning Commission. And exclusionary zones for solar and wind came up again. I reported that issue had been brought to this board months ago, and I'd like to see that back on the agenda so that we can address those, because that is a desire that we protect the township from overdevelopment when it comes to wind and solar farms. And the other item has to do, it's true that Scannell has until June 30th regarding the subdivision violations that they have and concerns, but we need to address the zoning violations. And so we can talk about the wall, we can talk about the lighting, but what about the buffering in the trees? Those have not been addressed yet. And I have brought this up month after month after month, as well as the residents on Lynn's Road. And there have been absolutely no reports on it. So I'm encouraged that now we finally get some transparency, but it should not be projected by this board that once they meet the subdivision regulations, that they're in compliance with the township. And I'll ask my question again. When was the last time we had a zoning inspector from Etna Township that actually walked on the east side of the wall? And I suggested it wasn't even November 2nd. We didn't have anyone go in and inspect that side. They were all on the Scannell side. So please, take a look at what the residents are enduring there, and let's address the zoning issues as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burkholder.
Steve Sly, 1372 Londondale Parkway, Newark, Ohio. Also a state of Ohio taxpayer and a Licking County taxpayer, which this township received over $2 million of funds in 2022. So I do believe that entitles me to voice my opinion what's going on here in Etna. I've had a Facebook following of a news page I've created that's over 900 members strong, that is growing daily, and I get messages constantly about what is going on in Etna Township. So questions I would like to have answers on. The security cameras. Why aren't they installed? They've been paid for, it was voted on, but there is no security cameras installed. There were security cameras installed, those were taken down. The bigger question, which a lot of these people weren't aware of until I brought it up to them from previous discussions with the board president, when she talked to me in a July 2022 telephone call about having these cameras installed so that she could spy on Mark Evans and Gary Burkholder, because she believed they were coming into the building after hours. It's funny that 2 of the 3 people sitting at the table up here in front of you did not want a full-time administrator when Mark Evans was the board president. But all of a sudden, they bring on a full-time administrator, do so at a last-minute meeting on a weekend knowing he had COVID and could not attend the interview session. Held resumes from him, held meeting notes from him, held opinions from him, but just simply threw a name in front of him when it came time to vote on the position. And the township is at a point right now where they can either continue what the voters in 2021 made clear that they want change, or they can continue with the mistakes of the past with John Carlisle in charge. Currently, we know John Carlisle is still in charge because during a 14-month period where I was involved with Mr. Carlisle behind the scenes, before I got to know Mark Evans more, it was the comments, which are on text form and on recorded calls, where Mr. Carlisle has said he has had multiple discussions with the board president, Trustee McKee, about things he thinks should happen here in Etna Township. So either he's lying or she is, but we know somebody in that group is. I do want to reach out and say a special thanks to Julie Varian for providing accurate responses to public records requests that she has the ability to fulfill. Unfortunately, she's been stripped of the majority of these abilities by the board president, stating that at a previous meeting, her being the board president and the township secretary will be overseeing certain records requests.
Okay, 3 minutes. Thank you. From Newark, Ohio, right? So I want to make this on the record. Okay.
Yeah, I think you know that, but if you didn't hear it at the beginning, yes, it was.
I did.
recorded.
Thank
Okay,
you.
great.
Is there any other public comments?
John Kennard, 10785 Palmer Road. And I'd like to start and ask Mr. Transparent if he needs an aspirin. His head's been nodding pretty bad here a little bit now. So, but I'd like to address the pond. I think eliminating the pond would probably be the best idea for the township. If you've ever maintained a pond, you have to take care of the algae, the growth, the cattails, just the maintenance around the pond. Mowing and trimming and keeping it neatly clean is a big headache. Safety hazard, if you've got a pond at the entrance of your park, if we ever get a park, more cars are gonna come and go in there, more hazards for somebody running into the pond. If it's across from the school, you're gonna have kids just tempted to come over and play in it, throw rocks in it, ride their bikes around it, put their floaters in it hey, maybe we might put somebody with a canoe in it. So you'll always have that policing of the pond. There'll be fishing in it, there'll be frog gigging in it. It's just a big headache. I've maintained ponds at Mount Carmel East Hospital. That's a public place, but if you get into a township to where especially it's kind of out of sight, no telling what you'll get down there. So I think doing away with the pond would be a great idea.
Thank you, Mr. Kennard. Appreciate that. Is there any additional public comments tonight?
I have two, and I'm Connie Heim. I live on 10293 Smoke Road. And I had been approached by our farm for solar evergreen. What is going on with solar around here? Are we trying to fill up this whole area with solar panels? Because that's not what they want our 200 acres for. And I refuse to sell it to them because I don't want solar panels, windmills in my area to my neighbors. So I'm wondering what is going on with Etna Township that we're all going solar all of a sudden. And he told me that every one of these warehouses this building is solar tech. So I just want to know what's going on. That's one thing I'm asking the township. And how much involved are you that you can stop this, or are we just blowing our horns? And one other thing, I live on Smoke Road and I've got the biggest pond in my field. Everybody's trying to get rid of a pond. I'm trying to get rid of mine. But it's because of the culvert we've had that we've been promised for ages. The culvert is definitely, it's way above where the water goes, so it just goes out into our fields. We're losing farmland. And I was promised that this was going to be looked at quite a while ago, and there's nothing been done. So I would like to know what I have to do, if I have to go down to Newark to get it done, or what I have to do to take care of this problem. Because we get about 3 acres, and we're paying $170 an acre just to have our farm cash rent. So we're putting, it's not fair to that farmer. So that's the two things I'd like to know, and I want to know what the solar panels are that's coming in, plus all the warehouses. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Connie.
Judy Kackmeyer, 29 Roma Court. Thank you for the segue. I had other prepared remarks, but I will trash those. I'm glad to hear that exclusionary zones are coming up again, because exclusionary zones will protect Etna Township. Several months ago, I gave all 3 board members a sample resolution that was adopted in northwestern Ohio. A whole section, all of Northwest, in Auglaize County and several counties around there, they have already implemented, they did it a long time ago, implemented exclusionary zones. And I brought to this board that resolution. I said, all you need to do is look it over, have it approved by your lawyers, discuss it. It didn't even make an agenda item. Hopefully now it will, because we need to work together. Working together means you're going to win some and you're going to lose some, but you're going to work together. I get, I hate the angst that's going on around here. And, I've been here for a lot of years, and we need to just do a much better job. Exclusionary zones will set us as a model in Licking County, not a laughingstock. We need to change that image. The only way we're going to change that image is to change it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Just so we are talking about the solar panels, I'm going to speak. I'm going to speak, okay? Because she just brought up solar panel, and so did Ms. Connie. I'm tired of you interrupting me, Mr. Evans. Okay, I'm going to speak right now. I'm going to speak right now because I want to address the solar situation, okay?
So then I can...
You can speak. We know you can speak. That's what you like to do. Okay, take over. I know you gave us a resolution months ago, back in August, and we turned this over to Mr. Evans. Okay, it's on record, and he was supposed to work with you on that, but it never moved anywhere. Okay, we have it on notes, we have it on record. Okay, So, back in August, you were supposed to work with her to make sure, you said you would take care of it. And I can pull the notes to confirm it. So we hope that you continue to work with her on that, to make sure it gets done.
All right, I've got the video that's not true, and Ms. McKee, you refused every agenda item requested, every one. You will not let us discuss anything, including the solar. You dictate everything on this agenda. You're not even letting the administrator, which she should be doing, take over it. So to say that it's my fault that we haven't addressed it, no, I want to move it forward. You refuse to do that, along with a litany of other items, just like the park pond. You refuse to even discuss it and argue with the resident. So I put on May 2nd, will the solar be on the agenda?
Again, you will work with that. That will be,
I'm requesting
because
that
you
right
had
now.
already, we have, you
I'm requesting that
were
right now, May
supposed to be,
2nd,
again,
agenda,
Mr.
solar.
Evans, you were supposed to work with her on, I have the
Okay,
notes,
I'll
it's in
get
our
it done.
minutes.
I'll get
Okay,
it
so
done.
you work
I'll get it
with
done
her.
by May 2nd.
Perfect.
Do we have
Perfect.
that on the agenda?
That will be the first thing that, since you've been on this board, that you have something done. You've never completed anything. So that's on the record.
I've been blocked by everything.
Nothing.
So can I have a commitment, May 2nd, solar will be on the agenda?
Exactly, yes, for
It
sure.
will.
We'll put it on there just so you can
Okay.
complete it.
Judy,
Okay.
I got that for you.
Okay, perfect.
Only took, what, 10 months?
Well, you was holding on to it for 10 months. And it's on the record, yes.
She's
yes.
come in how many times?
I don't,
and you
it doesn't,
ignore her?
listen, I did not ignore her. I told her what the process, we had things in place that Mr. Singleton made it clear that we were protected from the solar. Okay, the tax amendment, which is going to change as of the last few months, okay, that we just got from our attorney, that we're working on that as well. So yeah, you were given that back in August.
This is
and
all
it's
inappropriate, this is public comments.
it
This
doesn't
is
matter.
public comments.
It's a meeting, and we're going to get things done.
You guys are so much fun. I missed you. So welcome.
Will you please state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, Rachel's Lasney, 10141 Tollgate Road, Southwest.
Thank you, Rachel.
And I know you weren't here, but previously they were working on my property because it is flooding. And they said it's because of the drains in the front, that's the township or whatever. But my whole property is still flooding, where I still lose 2 driveways. So I would just like that to get looked at since it's spring and raining a lot. Also, when Vance was out and whoever else, there was 2 like drain covers. One's missing, so I have a huge hole, which is fun with children. So I just want that fixed too, like where the thing is, like after you guys came out. And that's all. So just get some help, somebody out there.
Just to let you know, I let our road crew know about that, the whole, I don't know, Bubba, did you address that, or?
I was out there.
You able to fix it, or?
Well, I mean, everything looks okay there. I mean, the time your yard's flooding, when we get 2.5, 3 inches of rain, I mean, everything floods. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you,
But the hole, was the hole?
No, there was a drain cover, like there's one like here, and then like if you go like 10 feet, there's another one, and there was one there, now it's just a hole where just a huge
okay.
sink in
I'll look at the
there.
hole tomorrow. If there's something we can do to fix it, I'll fix it.
I was just aware of the one, I didn't know there was 2, so maybe he did too.
Because it was fixed there for a while, wasn't it, Rachel? Was it?
I mean, it wasn't really raining.
Last year, when it, yeah.
Yeah, so the neighbors, they did the stop and work order, whatever, and they're supposed to fix it, but I think they also need to be checked on because their pond has been put in, it doesn't hold any water, so that's fun. And so that's just all still going into my yard. So I don't know what they approved because I've had other issues going on. But
Yeah, I saw it, it's flooded pretty bad. Because you guys are using the other driveway because of the flood?
well, so the only driveway that's left open is like my barn driveway,
Yeah.
which doesn't help because my backyard floods because of their, where they lifted their land.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's
Okay.
fun.
Thank you. Is there any more additional? Okay. I move that Anita Hanson will be the supervisor over the road department. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Johnson.
She's going to be over the day-to-day activities of the road crew, is that correct? Is that? Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes, we don't need any motions to, her job description puts her over all employees and departments, so there's no need for a motion to put her over those departments. I mean, we're not gonna go through motion on everything, and I think we need to just start administering this properly and not waste board or residents' time. So she's already over the roads, so there's no need for this.
I think we're doing this properly. We're doing it in order, so that there's no question about it, like you asked for before, properly, in order.
Yeah.
So that's
Done.
what we're working on.
Thank you. Ms. Varian, please roll call.
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I move to appoint myself, Ms. Rosalind McKee, as liaison of the office. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Evans?
No, we're going to do first.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, this is improper. The last meeting, you appointed you directed that Anita, Ms. Hanson, reports to you regarding the office. I think this is kind of a language change. There doesn't need to be a liaison. The administrator reports to the board, and that's the way it should be. That's the way it's done in every other entity in township. So again, to have a liaison report to or anything is just improper, because just as another resident indicated, that information should be shared with the entire board, not controlled again by one trustee. And if there's going to be anybody over it, myself and Mr. Johnson have more experience over the office than Ms. McKee, who has 0. So you would think it'd be one of us. But again, it's not needed. Right here in job description, she supervises, directs all personnel, and then she reports to us. So there's no need for it.
So, just 1 second, I want to clarify something when you said my experience. I'm in this township every day since I became the president. So I don't know what you're talking about. I have a lot of experience. I work with Laura daily, I work with John. I didn't burn the bridges with them. I have a working relationship with them. I have a lot of experience here in this office. Regardless of you making that statement, it's not true. And you continue to lie. Stop it. Stop it. Roll call, Ms. Varian. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure that you are receiving my weekly reports that I send. I just wanted,
Yes, but there's more to keeping us up to date than that weekly
I just wanted
report.
everybody to know that I do report fully to all 3 trustees on a weekly basis, so that you can be informed on what is happening.
But
So-
it did lack many of the items, even the pond, even you need to report fully to the full board, and it's not just to one trustee
I
directing
don't
the
report
actions.
to any one trustee, Mr. Evans. I don't.
He continues to lie.
So,
And he
and if
brings
there
his-
are, and I've asked in each of my reports when I send them, if there's more information you'd like to have, I'd be happy to include it. So,
My point is there's no reason for a
That's all he does.
liaison.
That's all he does.
Okay.
Roll call, Ms. Varian.
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I move to appoint Jeff Johnson as liaison to the road department. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Johnson,
None.
Mr. Evans?
No, again, there's no reason to, and if you're going to appoint anybody, should not be Mr. Johnson. He does not approve timesheets as required.
That's a lie. I do it all the time. Do it every week, every 2 weeks. So
Do not.
that's a definite lie.
You exceed the budget expenditures that are approved, and
Once
various
again,
other issues.
right.
So again, the biggest thing is a liaison isn't necessary. According to the job description, our administrator is in charge of that, and she reports to the board.
Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I move to approve the new Jan 2 quote to clean the carpets, tile, and windows. Is there a second? You've got that in your packet, hopefully.
Second.
Okay, discussion, Mr.
I have something to say, if that's all right.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted you to know, Jeff, that is the company we've used before.
Right,
Jan
yeah.
is the one, we
Mhm.
haven't cleaned them since right before COVID, because we were gonna bring them out and we shut down for COVID. But this is the gentleman that we have brought out to do the floors and
Yeah.
carpets and overall cleaning.
We do them as
windows.
special in addition to our regular
Yes,
cleaning.
it
It's a special
is the
thing.
same company.
We haven't used them in a while, I
Yeah,
don't
we
think,
have not
because of
done it
COVID and there
since
wasn't that many
before
people in
COVID.
here, but it
Correct.
definitely needs done again. So.
Okay. Discussion. Mr. Evans?
Is this different than the quote that was provided before? Is this just for one-time cleaning, or is this for continuing cleaning? Because
So one-time clean, which is the deep clean.
just one time?
Yeah.
Wasn't there a continuing thing in their other
We're
quote
just
that was forwarded?
discussing this one right now.
Okay, well, I want to make sure nothing's missing. And, don't we still need somebody for ongoing
Well,
cleaning?
right now, we're discussing this one. Which is a one-time clean. Did you get it too, Ms.
I
Marion?
think oh yeah, here it is. So what's the total? 416?
Oh, the total is $1,260.75. It breaks it down there, but that's your total. Roll call, Ms. Varian?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. I move to authorize the expenditure of $140,214.34 for the two sheriff cruisers. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Evans?
Yes, where's the quotes? I've been asking for, there's no quotes there. I've been asking for the quotes. They have not been provided. They're not here either. And then, do we have the quotes available, Ms. Hanson?
I don't have quotes.
Mr. Evans, this is the final that came from Lieutenant Carson from Licking County Sheriff's Office.
Right, he
This is their
indicated he
total.
provided you and.
Oh, I can get it, yeah, I can get them to you. I can get
So
it, it's no
why
problem, but this is the total. Because I don't know if you know this, there's a lot that goes to on these cruisers, from the lights to the computer in the
Well,
all of that stuff. So this is your total. So I can get the quotes to you.
They probably should have been provided to the board, but I have a question. We approved the deputies and cruisers last year.
Correct.
We had a quote last fall, far significant savings over this. I think each cruiser was low 50s. I believe it was like $105,000 for the total. Now, I've got an email here from Lieutenant Carson asking that these cruisers be ordered back in February because the deputies were coming on now.
Correct.
Why the delay?
That's
And
him.
the delay has apparently cost us $25,000 to $30,000. If we would have just ordered them last fall when we approved it and he provided the initial quote, we would have saved $25,000 to $30,000.
Okay, so let me answer that, because the fact that we asked him to order those before, he couldn't get them. So that's why we never got them, okay? And as you know, there was a big deal about chips, cruisers getting cars, okay? So this is the first time that he's been able since last year to now to get the cruisers. So this is why, and the prices went up, everything went up, food's going up, everything's going up in prices.
The delay.
So, no, we didn't delay anything, not as a township, we didn't do that. That was on their end. Okay, they could not get the cruisers. So let's be honest to the public again, let's not lie again, okay? Stop doing that to make it look like we as a township aren't doing our job, or the board are not doing our job. It's not true, Mr. Evans. Stop the lies. Stop the lots.
February 13th.
I get the date that he
I have
wrote.
the quotes in hand. These need to be ordered sooner than later.
And
I
we've
have 2
asked him, he
deputies in
couldn't
place.
get it.
It's 2 months later.
Mr. Evans, he came into this township and sat down and met with me and Mrs. Brown. When he could come to us, he blew us off several months. It's not on us. It's not on us. So we can talk about it with him on the phone. It's not a problem because you're lying to the public again.
I think the cost of the cruisers initially that you're talking about was the basic cruiser.
Well, see, this
It
is
didn't
what all the
have
bells and
other
whistles
stuff
are.
added into it.
And even in
This is
Lieutenant
with everything
Carson's
on it.
response, he said it's gone up over time. The initial quote isn't valid because it's only valid for a certain time.
Right.
Believe me, I've been dealing with this, and again, the delays are costing us $25,000 to $30,000.
I don't believe that's,
And
I
even
don't believe that's
without
the
the
case, because I
delays,
think there's other stuff that was added to
Yeah,
it that
it's
had to get final
right.
pricing on.
It's a lot to it. It's a lot to it. The
And even then,
decals,
he says we
everything.
need them in February. We have the deputies now, we don't have the cars.
well, I'm sorry,
So
Mr.
we're 2 months
Evans.
behind on this.
Mr. Evans, he made it clear that we can.
didn't need them in February, that was just a couple
We
weeks
just
ago.
cut, right. He couldn't
When he
meet us
came
back in
in
February. He just met
He
with
couldn't
us.
get the cars.
Correct. And we're going to get the cars now. And,
Well, shake your
and
head.
they'll
He
still
sat
be
here
a
and
few,
told us
I'm
he
telling you,
couldn't
Mr.
get the
Evans, you have to
cars
stop
when he met
lying
with us
to
just
the
a couple
public.
weeks ago.
Stop it.
That's not what the emails state.
Yeah,
That's
stop
not
it.
what he
Stop
says.
telling fibs. Stop it. Okay, please.
Doesn't matter. Got a first and a
But we're
second, I
going,
go for a vote.
let's go for a vote, Mrs. Varian.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. All of that, you said yes, wow.
Because we need them, but we're paying
Okay.
$30,000 more. That's got to be the first.
Yep. Which resolution is this?
Thanks for brightening my day.
I move Resolution 2304-1802 to approve the purchase orders as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion, I'll make a discussion. Where's the,
Is this one you want, the purchase order?
You should have it.
That one you want?
Yeah.
Probably under your packet.
I didn't see it.
They were in order.
oh,
There's 2 of them right here. There's one here, there's one here, right?
because I want to make sure there's one on here where,
One has a fuel,
There
one
was-
doesn't.
right, that's exactly where I'm going with this, correct.
There you go.
So, we, the day funeral service, we didn't approve that, so it's on here to pay, and I don't, as a board, we have not went through enough. We don't have the information that's correct in order to pay this services, so I would recommend that we don't pay that $995 for today funeral service for the indigent cremation. Is there a second?
Well, you already
Oh,
have a motion on the
it's
floor.
discussion.
Yeah.
So you just need to determine which purchase order resolution you'll approve.
That would be,
The one with it or without?
so we approve the one with, I would say to approve the one without it.
So your motion is for the one without it?
Correct.
And Jeff, you're seconding the one without it for the
Yes.
record?
Okay, discussion, Mr. Evans?
Yes, this is another matter that's been ignored for 6 months. The fiscal officer and I have been trying to get this addressed, and we had an opportunity after the first 60 days that we could pay this and be reimbursed. That's gone. So now this is costing the township $1,000 or $995. The individual is indigent. He was registered to vote there. When he went in the hospital, that's the address he gave. Everything's provided for it. We are bound to pay this. And this has been ignored by Mrs. McKee for 6 months. And our fiscal officer and I are trying to get this through. We got more from the Board of Elections. We have all the information needed, but again, more delay. We have an obligation to pay this. There's nothing out there that shows a different address. I mean, beside finding his body in the house, you can't get any more definitive. And this board refuses to say yes or no. They just let it drag on, and it's not why we're doing this to the funeral home that took care of this individual when he passed. That's not right. This decision should have been made like I said, over 4 months ago, and we would have been reimbursed. Now we can't. We had 60 days. And now we're going to delay it even further? There's no information. Our secretaries had all the information. When I got the voting record, she said, I already had that. What more is needed for this? I don't understand. I mean, they even sent a screenshot of the death certificate showing his address. So there's not one item showing a different address. It needs to be paid.
Okay.
Before a lawsuit, there's been lawsuits over stuff like this.
Let me just ask, we were dealing with this since months and months ago. He's right about that. And we worked with the prosecutor, and they came up with their findings of how we should deal with this. I'm going to ask one question to Mr. Evans, because we were in touch with the company, cremation company. Did you reach out to them in the last several months?
Have I?
Did you reach
Yes.
out? Okay, that's all I needed. I'm going to move it over to you now. Thanks, Mrs.
I was just going to say that the information that I was provided today is not a screenshot of a death certificate. It's a screenshot of like a computer screen. So I did reach out to try to get a copy of the actual death certificate. I spoke to the attorney who signed as the authorized agent. And so as soon as I can just finish the investigation on this, like I told you that I would, then we'll be able to make a recommendation about how the board should proceed.
But if for some members of this board, if they needed the death certificate, that should have been requested over 4 months ago. That's why I said this has been dropped. And until Julie and I started getting back into it and actually proposed, and I asked her to put this on so we can address it, it would have just been ignored.
Okay, your 3 minutes are up. Mrs. Brown, you have anything on this at all?
Not that I haven't already provided, and I feel it's needed an update. But in my opinion, for the prosecutor's office, they still have not proven several facts that needs to
Go
follow
further.
through.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, that's enough. I need a roll call, Mrs. Perry, please.
Mr. Evans?
And we're voting on the one without.
Without it, correct.
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes. Okay, I move to ratify the payment for the bill as shown on the payment listing. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Evans?
What is the immediate network of Central Ohio?
And just to clarify, this is also going to be the one without the funeral service.
Yes. But she's asking about the media network of Central Ohio. Correct. Thank you for, okay.
All right. And so should have contained the funeral services.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. McKee?
Yes. Okay, I'll turn it over to the fiscal officer, Ms. Marion.
Did you want to do the motion to make the transfers first?
But I think that's why she's given it to you.
Oh,
I made them copies of the thing you sent her.
I'm just requesting that I be able to transfer money between these funds to cover the expenses within all within the general fund.
Okay, I'll motion to transfer the funds as listed.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I'll go ahead and second. I'll second.
And under discussion, instead of having you have to read all of this, Julia, I'll just make sure these are listed in the minutes to show which ones went where.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Discussion, Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
None.
Did you have something, Mrs.?
No, she just wanted
Actually,
to make sure we reflect.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I have a question. Is this to get through the rest of the year as calculated?
On some of them, yes.
Okay, that's what it looks like. You're trying to put nothing in to
Yeah.
get through the rest of the year. That's correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Roll call, Ms. Marion?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
And then I had a comment, since fiscal officer, I was gonna ask if I could make a comment.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, effective immediately, I will no longer be responsible for receiving or fulfilling public records requests. The request will need to be the responsibility of the board now.
Okay, so Ms. Varian, let me understand what you're saying, please. Can you make it more?
I
you trying to do?
The public records requests will not be my responsibility anymore. I will comply with what I need to supply, but I'm not going to keep the database or respond to all the emails that come in.
Okay, is that something our administrator can look into further in regards to under our revised code?
Well, I will tell you, that's the question I had as I was listening, was whether that is an option under the Ohio Revised Code. I just don't know the answer.
Okay, thank you. So she'll check into it.
I talked with the prosecutor, and it does not state that I am assigned those duties of maintaining a database or responding to the records.
Okay.
So if you want to follow up, it was Mark Altier that I talked with.
And
Yeah, I just don't know as I sit here. So
Yeah, right.
And I believe the driving force on this is access to records has been withdrawn from the fiscal officer and been given to the president and the secretary, and they have refused to respond or provide those records so the fiscal officer can properly respond to records requests. So she cannot fulfill her duties, and therefore I think it's appropriate if the board is going to withhold access to our, again, fiscal officer through threatening letters from outside counsel, that the board take on that responsibility, and maybe now we'll have actual response and production of numerous records that have been unfulfilled. And I do believe that this will allow our fiscal officer the time and attention to her elected office's duty, since this board has refused to support her in her requests for an assistant or any other kind of support.
That's not true. Mrs. Brown, I've seen her help Mrs. Varian, so that's not true. She's helped her. We've helped whatever needs to be done. And you keep speaking for her. You continue to do that. She has a mouth. She is an elected fiscal officer. Sure. She can speak for herself.
And I'm speaking.
And second of all, let's talk about the records. The reason why we did that public record, the reason why we got our attorneys involved was because, tell them why. Why did you go into, why did you send a letter to our third party email so they can get into our database, so she can have access to the database?
You asked me why I sent?
I'm asking Ms. Varian.
It's a part of the fiscal office, and I have a right, the employee handbook says that I have a right to every
Employee handbook?
employee's passwords and everything to all their
Yeah, you're not an
access.
employee though, you're elected official.
Yep, but it says the fiscal officer has a right to all the keys and all the passwords, and when I didn't get responses or cooperation, then I looked into the law.
You didn't have keys and access to different things. Well, let's just say this, Ms. Varian. I've seen you have access to whatever you needed in this office. I've never seen where you could not get into things or have keys. Now, back to, I know Mr. Evans wanted access to everybody's emails, which he didn't get. Right. Oh, yeah, yes, you did.
Nope.
It's on record. Yes, it is.
Emails.
And we, from the day that we took our seats, anytime that there was a public record request, we went through our emails, we fulfilled them, and we got them over to you so you can redact them. That's what we were doing. So.
Mr. Sly can attest that that is not true.
We have.
You
I didn't
said no
ask you what
records
Mr.
exist,
Sly
and
can do.
provided
I don't care what
records.
Mr. Sly can do. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to Ms. Varian. I'm not talking to Steve.
Well, with little access and minimal cooperation, I can't fulfill the records request efficiently, and I didn't mean to cause an argument.
You're
Just
not causing an
handing it back
argument.
to
It's a discussion, Julie. It's a discussion. It's not an argument.
So it's our responsibility.
Again, it's the same people that you recruit, your minions, Your same people that you recruit to come in to start trouble and you lie. You don't tell the truth. And it has to stop. It has to stop, Mr. Evans. Is that all for you, Ms. Varian?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Trustee comments?
Are you going in order or?
Mr. Evans, you go ahead.
Okay. I'd just like to announce that I've gotten a lot of questions about aggregation since that letter, opt-out letter came out. We're troubled, and a lot of people don't realize that the Energy Harbor that's Treble's supplier. You can opt out for and select a different supplier for a lower rate. The county that came here and suggested that we go with their aggregator just announced they secured a 10% savings over what we passed here. So if we would have just went with the county, we would have saved 10%. That's a lot. But this board decided to just shove it through without any other presentations when others were begging to present. So if you go onto the Energy Choice site, there's 4 of them that the same term, 24 months, it's a 5.2% savings, I believe. You could actually get the same rate as what Treble did for even longer term if you think rates are going up. If you want a 19-month, you could get even more savings, I think about 10%. So that's out there. We should call it the energy aggravation, not aggregation, because we had the fiscal fiduciary duty to pick the best one at the lowest rates for our residents. When they voted this in, that's what they were expecting us to do, but this board decided not to. And that's a real shame. Regarding, like I said, framework, our Mr. Burkholder indicated, we weren't in it. We ignored that. Again, it was another request that was just ignored.
You were out there on social media arguing and fighting. They didn't want to have anything to do with you. That's why. Tell the truth.
You were sent
You're out there
a request
fighting on
for
social
us
media.
to join, and I did have a question. We were talking about school safety and that. Did Ms. McKee, were you approached by the school about a sidewalk from a connecting community to the school?
No.
You were not?
No.
Okay.
Were you?
And then I became aware of one. But as far as, like I said, the aggregation, this costs our residents money, and they have an opportunity to choose another supplier. And again, even residents say work together. But it's obvious, Ms. McKee, Mr. Johnson, you do not want to work together. You do not include the whole board agenda items. You do not include information prior to the meeting or even at any time. Records requests are not fulfilled. Even I, as a trustee, have had to do public records requests to try to get information, and those are not complied with. So I understand our fiscal officer's frustration when they come in, and if you read her response, she has to state, I don't have any responsive that I have access to. But Ms. McKee, you gave yourself and the secretary access, and you refused to. And you lied when you said, I wanted everybody's email. No elected officials,
Yes, you did.
no elected officials, and that's on record.
You wanted to get it.
I wanted general email because areas of this township have been locked for me. Mr. Johnson took those keys. As far as I'm concerned,
Okay, your
they're
3
stolen.
minutes are up, Mr. Evans. Thank you. Mr. Johnson. You sure?
I mean, you fill everybody's heads with lies.
Yeah, that's all he does. That's all he does is lie. You know, he just doesn't know any other way.
People are smarter than
Yeah,
that.
I
They'll
know.
understand.
Yeah,
I've got
they
the
are.
proof.
You always say that.
Trouble costs us money. That's proof.
Let's go to, I'm going to just say, make it clear, I will support Ohio Township Association. I am not here to support another commission. That's why I supported Travail as a board. So you can support whoever you choose to support, Mr. Evans. But under the Ohio Township Association, Travail has worked with the association for a long time. And I know you are trying to work with the county, which they work with a lot of the villages in regards to the aggregation.
and save the money, 10%.
Or for now, let's see where it goes.
For the next 2 years.
Let's see where it goes, Mr. Evans. I would like to make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Marion?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKee?
Yes.
Absolutely, yes.